Peace and blessings, job people. We will further our discussion on allergies today. That is our main topic. It's going to be kind of indifferent from what you're used to hearing, but I want to give you a new perspective and maybe change your perspective on when you receive an allergic reaction. This is something that most allergenists would know when they basically tell you that you need to go see an allergenist and find out what type of allergy you're having, what kind of testing that they will give you, and what you are more responsive to, because we got some real strange reactions out there that I want to kind of differentiate which one is a food sensitivity and which one is a food allergy. So today we will discuss most of the mechanism, the function, and the way that the allergenist would know the difference between these two things. As a review, our natural human defense system, if you want to go back to the YouTube videos to find out how does our body defense system works, you can go back and review that. But our immune system is alerted when we have these immune cells called plasma cells. And when they come across a certain pathogen, they either are in a toxic environment, a stressful situation, or something that they have consumed, some type of food that has caused this allergic reaction. So whether you are eating, breathing, stressed out, hot, they even got sweat allergies, or something, you become lacerated and a bacteria gets on your skin and breaks out in a rash. These are immune responses called allergic reactions. For instance, I drew up this board behind me to show you that most people during our spring days, our going into the summer days like we are right now, are allergic to pollen. So I blew up this microscopic pollen right here to show that when this person inhales this, it alerts what we call our adaptive immune system. So it's trying to adapt to the situation that this person is alerted to, and it's in high variability at this moment because we're not used to the outer environment being this so allergenic. So what I've described here is when this pathogen is inhaled, the response is to get rid of it. So it releases out these antibodies. So an antibody is simply small little proteins, specific proteins made of amino acids that can produce a response to a pathogenic allergen. You may see me say the word antigen in a place of allergen because they're basically the same thing. But its purpose is to bind to the allergen and mark it, label it, and tell the immune system to get it out of here. So it wants to destroy it, so it got to get it out of there. We have 5 different types of antibodies. These are immunoglobulin E, the one that we're talking about here with allergies. That's what we're focusing on. But we have 5 different types, which is immunoglobulin A, E, G, D, and M, all part of this immune system adaptive immunity. So this particular one is E. So it binds to white blood cells right next to mast cells. So mast cells, I drew up this mast cell so that you can see that it is actually considered a antigen presenting cell. So they call APC, presenting cells. And what their job is to do is to find or bind to allergens, or antigens. So the antigen needs a receptor site, which comes along onto the mast cell because of the immunoglobulin antibody. It needs a place where it can bind to. So before we go any further, this little microscopic pollen binds to this receptor site. So we're just going to draw that there, and it binds right on. This little location right here is called a binding site. And that's what happens when the antibody binds to the binding site, to the mast cell, the allergen, and it takes up this response. Now this response is releasing something called histamine. Now you heard that the allergenist will give you something called an antihistamine. Now histamine causes vasodilation. What is vasodilation? It's when the blood vessels starts to dilate and it brings more blood to a certain area that is having a lot of permeability. Now permeability is basically the congestion, something that the bacteria can easily get through there. We have these little alveoli inside of our lungs. That's it's basically part of our immune system because they have these bronchioles that become congested. Now inside of the bronchioles, they have capillaries. They go up to our nasal and our air passageway, and they can become clogged, like with mucus and things like that. So say for instance, we got mold, we got pollen, or we have pet dander. We vacuum the floor and it has pet dander in it, and you breathe in these microscopic particles, or better yet, there's mold in the house, and it can cause an allergic reaction called asthma. Now mold can basically cause asthma. Pet dander can cause bronchitis and things like that. And we may not even look at this because I have to change your perspective on how these environmental agents can cause problems, as well as certain foods that can cause problems with our having allergic reactions. A person can easily have this constricting of vessels or constricting of air passageways and can't breathe and have difficulty breathing because they eat shellfish or because they eat peanuts. These are allergic reactions that become very, very pathological. Now the difference between somebody that has a food sensitivity is that allergies can cause you to die. They can cause an exaggerated reaction. Let me underline that here. That is the big difference between a food sensitivity and an allergy, because it becomes it's immediate. So a person will have to have an EpiPen. They have an EpiPen for those who have to have epinephrine to calm down their endocrine system, their adrenaline. The nervous system is connected. Everything's connected. To not have this allergic reaction, to overcome that allergic reaction. But in this diagram, I needed to show you that this response, this reaction that is happening with this mast cell and how it releases histamine. Let me show you a small little video on how this actually works inside the body.
A foreign bacteria has invaded. One way the body protects itself is with small proteins called antibodies. These Y-shaped molecules recognize the intruder and bind to its surface at special sites called epitopes. When antibodies begin to cover the bacteria, it is called opsonization. This process attracts a phagocyte, a large cell that digests unwanted particles in the body. The phagocyte binds to the antibodies and engulfs the bacteria. The microbe is then killed and digested, and the body saved.
So we see that the immune system is activated, and it's alerting these plasma cells, and it's releasing IgE. And then IgE binds to the mast cells, and then the allergen or the antigen binds to the IgE of the mast cell, and it releases the histamine and tries to get that out. That's when we see the runny nose, the watery eyes, the stuffy nose, the congested airflow, and that's us having this allergy towards pollen. Now, Pharaoh in Egypt, they say that the first reported diagnosis of etiology of a pharaoh was a bee sting. He swell up, his air passageway swell up, and become very itchy and hay fever, and he died from a bee sting. So I just want to throw that in because you see that in certain studies that certain people may talk about the pharaoh, the first pharaoh of Egypt. So we know that certain foods can cause allergy or a food sensitivity. But when it's a food sensitivity, it is when an organ can be affected by the food, and it may take up to about 45 minutes after you ingest it, or even up to 3 days. But we have to start recognizing these things and become aware of it. So this section of the video will make you a little bit more aware of what type of foods we are dealing with here. You've heard of edema. Edema. Well, edema can be a food allergy. It can cause some swellings. It can cause the swelling of your ankles. Sometimes it can even mess with your kidneys because of too much potassium here, too much salty foods here. And basically that is either a food sensitivity or allergy, but I'm looking at that as an allergy because you should not have meat if you have edema. And when we're dealing with food sensitivities, people, food sensitivities run in our families. It tends to develop within our genetics. Certain people have hereditary type of traits when it comes to foods. So take for instance the person that drinks milk and does not recognize, or is starting to recognize, that they get migraines or they get headaches 45 minutes to 3 hours later after the headache. So this could be a child that is growing up, and you want to do the cereal in the mornings, but it is causing poor concentration at school, and it's causing high irritabilities at school, and they always complain of different migraines and headaches. Milk, on the other hand, can also be an intolerance to most children and most adults. At least 78% of us are lactose intolerant. So I want to let people know that milk can cause a person to have a bloating, loose stools, acid reflux, because there's protein inside of this milk. And the difference between the intolerance and the food sensitivity is that the food sensitivity creates an inflammatory response. Within the intolerance, it only creates a issue when it comes to stomach gurgles, loose stools, bloating, certain things that you may be intolerant to. That it does not create an inflammatory response. Now, a person that may eat eggs may not realize that 3 days later, he's continued to stay bloating. He's bloating, he's complaining of abdominal pains, and it's one of those food sensitivities that you have to become very aware of, because this happens 2 to 3 days later after you eat the eggs. Now, I want to explain that the food sensitivity also alerts our immune system. Our adaptive immunity is involved with certain antibodies when it comes to food sensitivities. I don't want you to take this lightly, because food sensitivity is very serious, very, very serious, because it can change the quality of your life, and it can contribute to whatever degenerative disease that may occur in your lifespan. This is where the sensitivities and allergies tend to run in our families, and can pass on to our future generation. Some of the people are drinking coffee, and coffee is a protein, it's a bean. And how long does it take for coffee to released from the stomach. Since it's a protein, it should take about 3 to 5 hours. So what happens is, being that this coffee makes a food sensitivity inside of you, you receive acid reflux and you may receive migraines. Coffee basically takes this long and putrefies ferments inside of the stomach, and the stomach does not want to release it, so therefore it creates a acid reflux. The pyloric sphincter actually does not want to release. Coffee then becomes a food sensitivity. Now, if your genes are saying that you get cardiovascular disease, this is where everything gets really, really important. If your genes say that you get cardiovascular disease and you continue to eat the foods that make it very sensitive, that the T helper cells are involved in this. They make whatever your immune system very, very sensitive. You create those genes to increase the variability. This is the role that the immune system actually plays to increase the variability of you getting high blood pressure through certain foods. So it can create this and activate this immune response by eating these certain foods. We've seen gluten be contributed to certain like celiac disease, so it does have a lot to do with our gut. It has a lot to do with our immunity. 80% of our immunity is actually inside of our gut. Everything starts from the healthy bacteria that we create inside of our gut. Our neurotransmitters are made there. 92% of our neurotransmitters is made there. And when a person says that they are depressed, it's basically because they need to change their microbiome. So I want to take this outside, get out of the still air, and be able to show you a little bit more some strange reactions that we may have based on food sensitivities, or basically, hey, when we go outside, we can get photodermatitis, which is a sun allergy. So I want to kind of further explain a little bit more on IgG responses of our immunity. So let's go outside. All right, y'all people. Had to come outside, get some fresh air, take a little walk a little bit, clear my mind. When I'm in that lab, I'm in there for hours and hours and hours. And I'm getting a little stale in there, so my mind needs to be able to think, come out to nature, just be by the water, you know. So in our allergy lecture, we were just speaking upon some things about the sun. I said we could have a sun allergy. Certain people have this photomorphic eruption, light eruption. I had a client come to me asking that, you know, they're allergic to the sun. They have to put a whole lot of sunscreen on just in order to go outside. Well, that is simply the microbiome inside of your gut, because I just explained how 92% of our neurotransmitters and our 80% of our gut is our immune system. And so if neurotransmitters are made there in our gut, they're sending up different signals to our brain to say, okay, now we can handle this sun allergy. We can activate the vitamin D, the calcitonin inside of our skin to accept this sun allergy that we have, but it no longer have anymore. So there's another one that I want to explain, because I said we can have a sweat allergy. People go outside and physical activity, and exercising. They may go to the gym. They may get in the sauna or something of that sort, where heat hits the skin and makes you sweat, and all of a sudden you break out in what they call this cholinergic urticaria. This is where the heat rash or heat bumps all over the skin where it's been affected at. that's one of the sweat allergies that we have. Some strange reactions that we're having. One of the ones that that's going to be very futuristic, and some people right now are having it, around about 8% of the population is having it. It's called a electrosensitivity allergy. This is where we can't take the electromagnetic field coming off of computers, mobile phones, and certain cars that have computers in them also. So they are not, they're becoming very, very sensitive or hypersensitive to those electromagnetic waves. But you may say, Ross, I don't have an allergy to anything. I just want to let you know that everyone out here has some type of allergy. You can take poison ivy, for example. It actually alerts certain immune cells so that you can break out in histamine, and then all of a sudden hives wherever that infected area of the poison ivy plant has touched. Now, everyone I know that is mostly infected by poison ivy, and sometimes we even get this poison ivy hives are coming from mango trees. Mango trees have these leaves on it just like from the poison ivy plant, and if those mangoes actually touch those leaves, the outside layer can become infected with the ivy on it. So I don't want to have people going out to buy soaps and lotions with mango in it, because you can have an allergic reaction just like poison ivy. A lot of times, we may not recognize these as allergies, but I wanted to give you a different perspective on what could be and what is not allergies. One of the ones that causes autism, and I know this may spark your eyebrows just to be able to catch this information, is that when a child is being injected with the MMR shot, virus actually hides inside of the colon and you become allergic to it. And the MMR shot did not vaccinate you from it. So a person would have, like I said, our gut is just like our second brain now. It's the neurotransmitters have to be able to process first in the gut. So the person that's depressed, the person that has autism, all have to change their microbiome, their healthy bacteria inside their gut. Don't believe me? You can look up the research studies and find out how the MMR shot, the measles virus, actually causes the autistic children.
There's too much corruption, too much conflict of interest, and our children are paying the price.
Well, it is an incredibly controversial subject, to say the least. But those protesters outside the CDC here in Atlanta say that the information being provided to the public about vaccines is not completely honest. And all of it hinges on one man. This guy right here, a scientist you've probably never heard of. That scientist's name is Dr. William Thompson. And it was on August 27th of 2014 that Dr. Thompson made an admission that got very little media coverage, but it was a major statement. That statement read in part, quote, "I regret that my co-authors and I omitted statistically significant information in our 2004 article published in the journal Pediatrics. The omitted data suggested that African American males who received the MMR vaccine before age 36 months were at increased risk for autism. Decisions were made regarding the findings of the report as the data was collected, and I believe that the final study protocol was not followed."
And you need to start doing some fasting. Fast for at least for a week to find out and start reintroducing certain foods for a long-term treatment for yourself. This is the way to actually get over the allergy per se. It's not a fact that certain doctors may say you may need to vaccinate and put this type of bacteria in you so that you can adapt to it. There's some type of remission of adaptive immunity that they're trying to induce on you. You can't do that. What you have to do is avoid it. You have to avoid it and not become immune to it, because this is your defense system between these type of allergens, these antigens. So I want people to, just become more aware of it. But then again, we're feeding our children GMOs. We like to give them foods that other corporations feed, that feed us. Like, you allow that. You allow McDonald's, you allow Burger King, you allow, all the rest of these other restaurants, fast food restaurants, to feed you when, they're using GMO corn. I'm not trying to just make myself a target or anything like that, but you can look up canola oils, you can look up the McDonald's chicken nuggets and find out that they're 56% GMO corn, and that the high fructose corn syrups that's inside of Heinz ketchups and the other GMO corns found in Coca-Colas and things like that. I mean, we are disrupting their brain functioning already. So I just wanted to throw that little key point out there, that there's some things that you need to do. Start looking up the GMO food list so that you see what not to consume. It's allowed here, people, so you got a destructive government that wants to make another species, as I say. The sodas and the part that the person that has edema, he likes to eat packaged meat. And the packaged meats got sodium benzenite, sodium nitrates that's inside of it, and the trisamines that's inside of the hot dogs and all of the pepperonis and red meats. The person that has edema can't have that. It's too much sodium, too much nitrates that's inside of there. So it's best. Nitrates are a carcinogen. So that's what the person has when the edema is actually an allergy. So you have to stop those things. Now I have a product that can help break down the histamine so that you become, these herbs are antihistamine. It's called Allergy's herbal form, the Z on the end, so that you could actually discourage the swelling, the inflammation from coming up into those affected areas, especially those who are having running nose, stuffy nose, and watery eyes. So this formula can help you out get over some of those ailments, but these are some of the mechanisms that you need to understand, and I'm glad to have this tutorial with you guys so that you fully understand what an allergenist would basically try to help you with. To the most part, the long-term effect is to get you away from those certain foods. So I thank you guys for listening. Until next time, God bless us.